Hello and welcome to the Tomorrow News. Today we'll dive into the history of the upcoming April 28th. We look at several stories and talk about people who, through their example and actions, have changed the world and given us new hope for progress. So, without wasting any time, let's jump into the coverage of the most interesting things that happened on April 28th. Our first story begins in the year 1940, when in the New York neighborhood of Queens, a boy is born who will forever change our idea of space travel. His name is Dennis Tito. Even though his name is probably unfamiliar to you, on April 28, 2001, he performs a feat that cements his place in history. From an early age, little Dennis is interested in space and starflight. In 1962, he finishes his master's degree in science and shortly after begins working at NASA's Jet Propulsion Laboratory. Although not an astronaut, he gains a lot of experience and knowledge from the early space expeditions. Tito, however, doesn't spend much time at NASA. In the early 70s, he leaves and turns to the financial sector, where over the years he accumulates substantial wealth. He founds the investment company Wilshire Associates, where he begins managing billions of dollars in capital. One thing, however, remains unchanged: his desire to leave Earth's orbit and see space with his own eyes. In the late 1990s, the Russian Space Agency is struggling with funding due to the recent collapse of the Soviet Union. So, they begin to promote the idea of sending civilians into space, naturally for a price. Here, Dennis Tito comes back into focus as he pays $20 million to fulfill his childhood dream and become the first space tourist. As we noted, this happens on April 28, 2001, when Tito boards the Soyuz TM-32 spacecraft together with Commander Talgat Musabayev and flight engineer Yuri Baturin. Their mission is to dock with the International Space Station and spend a little over 7 days on it. At this point, it's worth noting that at the time NASA is firmly against such a mission. They believe Tito is not sufficiently trained and would endanger the entire crew in the event of an emergency. Philosophically speaking, they think space is only for highly qualified professionals, and the fact that someone is buying their way up with money goes against their principles. The mission, however, goes more than successfully. As Tito himself says, "During those 8 days, I had a smile from ear to ear the whole time." The crew of Soyuz TM-32 docks with the International Space Station and spends the planned time there, conducting various experiments. After that, they return safely to Earth. Throughout the mission, Tito follows all protocols, never complains, and doesn't create tension, proving NASA wrong, that a civilian has no business in space. After him, a few more people fly to space for money, and even today, companies like SpaceX and Blue Origin offer this service, sending civilians into Earth's orbit. But all of this only became possible after, on the upcoming day 24 years ago, Dennis Tito fulfilled his childhood dream and became the first star tourist. Now, as we always do, we'll focus on a few people who took their first breath on April 28. Let's start chronologically. On April 28, 1916, in the small town of Cento, Italy, the car designer, engineer, soldier, and more, Ferruccio Lamborghini is born. He was born into a family of winemakers, but studied mechanics and became a brilliant engineer. After the end of World War II, Lamborghini started making tractors from leftover military equipment left on the battlefields. Thus, he creates the company Lamborghini Trattori. No, Lamborghini Trattori. This makes him quite a wealthy man and sparks his love for fast cars, which he starts collecting. Naturally, his favorites are Ferrari models, but as a true engineer, Lamborghini notices that Ferrari have problems with their clutch, and their maintenance isn't very reliable. He even voices his complaints to Enzo Ferrari. Of course, back then there was no Google where he could write an angry review and give him 1 star. But those complaints didn't impress Ferrari, who dismissively replied, "You stick to tractors and leave the cars to me." Naturally, this infuriates Lamborghini and he sets out to create a car faster, more beautiful, and more comfortable than Ferraris. A few years later, in 1966, the iconic model Lamborghini Miura comes to life. It is a low car with a rare mid-engine layout. In other words, the engine is behind the driver's seat, but before the rear axle, improving the car's overall balance. Because of this, the Miura is not just a fast car, but rather a piece of art on wheels. Thus, Lamborghini becomes Ferrari's biggest rival in the sports car world, and even today, the company is synonymous with speed, luxury, and class. And to think that Enzo Ferrari could have avoided all of this if he had just taken the criticism a bit better. But that's how Italians are. They ignite quickly. Back to Lamborghini. Shortly after the success of his first car, he sells his shares and returns to his parents' winery, retiring and making wine. His name, however, is remembered and known around the world, and his cars are sold to the richest members of society. After all, who's even seen a Lamborghini commercial on TV? Now, from sunny and warm Italy, we'll move to the not so hospitable England, weather-wise. More precisely to the town of Bakersfield, near London. There, on April 28, 1948, Sir Terence David John Pratchett is born, or simply Terry Pratchett. He is known to the public as the author of the Discworld series. It includes 41 books mixing humor with wisdom and memorable characters. Although he becomes a world-famous writer, Terry Pratchett's early life is completely ordinary and humble. He grows up as a kid who loves science, fiction, fantasy novels, and writing. At the age of 13, he publishes his first story in the school magazine, and at 17, he drops out of school to work at the local newspaper. He doesn't finish university and has no higher education, but his writing talent is unique and impossible to overlook. In 1983, he publishes his first novel, The Color of Magic, which becomes the first book of the Discworld series. Pratchett's style is iconic. He uses fantasy as a backdrop to talk about pressing society issues. All this is mixed with a dose of unfiltered humor, which only makes the books more accessible to people who usually don't like fantasy. For example, many of the jokes are written as a footnotes, giving the feeling that the author is letting you in a private joke. Also, the dialogue of one of his characters, Death, is written only in capital letters because, well, Why not? All of this shows Pratchett's unique writing style, why he is so beloved, and why he sold more than 85 million copies of his books. His unmatched sense of humor also shows in his final wish. Shortly before his death in 2015, Pratchett tells his friend Rob Wilkins that after his death he wants a steamroller to crush his personal hard drive containing unfinished works. Wilkins fulfills his friend's last wish in 2017. Then, in front of an audience at the Great Dorset Steam Fair, a vintage steamroller named Lord Jericho rolls over Terry Pratchett's hard drive, permanently erasing all of his unfinished work. This is just one more example of why he remains forever in the hearts of fans around the world.
Up in the sky, look! It's a bird! It's a plane! It's Superman!
Do you recognize this superhero? And this one? Maybe this one looks familiar. Why are we talking about superheroes? Well, because tomorrow, April 28th, is World Superhero Day. Created in 1995 by Marvel Comics employees, they dedicated the day to the fictional heroes who inspire ordinary people. The holiday quickly grew beyond comic books and soon became an international event. This day, however, isn't just meant to honor fictional heroes with superpowers, but also the real-life heroes, from doctors to firefighters, from police officers to teachers, and even every ordinary parent. Anyone who does something for their loved ones and strangers alike, anyone who helps those around them, is a true superhero. I'm sure that includes you too. So celebrate April 28th. Know that it is a special day, and remember, tomorrow is a bright day.